Have you ever noticed how two people can face the exact same situation yet walk away with completely different feelings, one filled with despair and the other brimming with hope? The Buddha gently reminds us that our happiness does not merely depend on what happens around us, but rather on how we choose to perceive each event. In other words, our mindset can either imprison us in sorrow or liberate us into joy. Picture two prisoners looking out through the same metal bars. One sees only mud and misery on the ground below, while the other gazes upward and marvels at the stars gleaming in the night sky. This simple image conveys a profound truth. We often allow ourselves to be bound by dark thoughts and negative beliefs, forgetting that we hold the power to shift our gaze and see a world filled with light and possibility. The Buddha compassionately teaches that although our circumstances can be difficult, we do not have to remain victims of those difficulties. Today, I invite you to explore how shifting your perspective can open the door to resilience, gratitude, and genuine happiness. By embracing the Buddha's wisdom, we discover that circumstances need not dictate our inner state of being. Whether you are challenged by loss, illness, or heartbreak, your response, the way you choose to view your situation, lies entirely within your control. Yes, suffering may arise, but beyond that suffering, there is also potential for insight, growth, and renewed hope. As you listen to this message, keep your heart open and your mind curious. Let us journey together, guided by compassion and the gentle inspiration of the Buddha's teachings, to uncover how a simple change in viewpoint can transform a moment of pain into an opportunity for enlightenment. Prepare yourself to look beyond the mud at your feet and seek, instead, the endless stars sparkling in the vast sky above. Imagine two prisoners, both gazing through the same set of steel bars. One looks down and sees only dirt, gloom, and despair, while the other looks up and beholds the vast night sky, filled with twinkling stars that inspire awe and hope. Their circumstances are identical, yet their perspectives lead to radically different experiences. This simple image mirrors a truth that the Buddha compassionately shared with us. Our happiness does not hinge on the circumstances we find ourselves in, but on the lens through which we choose to view them. Many of us spend our days focused on the mud below our problems, fears, and disappointments, and we allow those concerns to blind us to the limitless possibilities right above us. We become so caught in our worries that we forget there is another direction we can turn, another perspective we can adopt. By shifting our outlook from the mud to the stars, we tap into a reservoir of hope, resilience, and peace, hidden in plain sight. The Buddha lovingly taught that it is not outside forces that dictate our joy or sorrow, but our minds and the stories we create within them. Yet, this does not mean we should deny hardship or pretend that pain does not exist. Instead, we must acknowledge the mud, recognize its presence, and then remember that beyond the mud lies a grand expanse of beauty and light. Suffering occurs when we cling to negativity, allowing it to consume our thoughts. The wise approach is to embrace mindfulness, acknowledging our challenges without letting them define us. Through compassionate awareness, we see that every obstacle also holds the seeds of growth, learning, and inner transformation. The Buddha reassures us that we have the capacity to choose our responses, even in moments of great difficulty, rather than sinking into frustration or hopelessness. We can learn to meet adversity with understanding and empathy for ourselves and for others. This shift in perception allows us to replace judgment with acceptance, anger with calm, and despair with a steadfast faith in our own ability to grow. In this way, we gain the strength to not only face life's problems but to thrive beyond them. My dear friends, reflect on where your focus naturally falls. Do you dwell on the mud of past regrets and painful memories? Or do you remember to lift your eyes to the stars, seeing possibility in every challenge? The Buddhist teachings remind us that we are always free to choose compassion over blame and curiosity over fear. Let us dare to release the heavy burdens that keep our gaze fixed downward, trusting that the same sky of hope is available to each of us. The stars are there, constant and unwavering, waiting only for us to look up and behold their light. Let us journey deeper into the lesson of these two prisoners who stare through the same set of bars, yet perceive entirely different worlds. One sees only mud, while the other beholds the endless marvel of the stars. I find this story profoundly moving because it so vividly illustrates a key principle in the Buddha's teachings. Our experiences in life do not depend solely on external events but on how our minds interpret and respond to them. Let us reflect on how this powerful truth can reshape our approach to challenge, transform our inner landscape, and ultimately bring us closer to genuine peace and happiness. When the Buddha taught that suffering arises from our own minds, he was not suggesting we deny reality or ignore our pain. On the contrary, he gently reminds us to notice how our attitude, our habitual thoughts, and our mental scripts either intensify or lighten our burdens. In the case of the two prisoners, the first man, by focusing on the mud, essentially becomes a prisoner of his own negativity. He feels anger, despair, and perhaps hatred toward the circumstances that led him there. Staring at the mud, he reinforces his belief that the world is harsh, hopeless, and unkind. Meanwhile, the second prisoner lifts his gaze toward the sky, where countless stars shimmer with possibility. He still stands behind the same bars, but his heart feels light, his mind filled with wonder, hope, and gratitude for the beauty that remains even in confinement. According to the Buddha, It is this shift in perspective that leads us away from suffering, liberating our hearts even when external conditions remain difficult. It reminds me of a time in my own life when I faced a series of disappointments all at once. At first, I let these setbacks define me, and the weight of them pressed heavily upon my spirit. But then, I remember the Buddha's words about shifting one's outlook. Instead of continuing to stare at the mud, I began looking for lessons, opportunities for growth, and the small blessings that existed despite my difficulties. Though my circumstances had not changed overnight, my experience of them brightened significantly. The Buddhist teaching, in essence, is that we always have a choice. We can allow hardships to drown us in despair, or we can nurture hope and resilience by changing how we view our challenges. Our minds are incredibly powerful, capable of either trapping us in sorrow or propelling us toward peace. That does not mean ignoring the mud or pretending that hardship never exists. Rather, it means acknowledging it for what it is, something real yet not defining the whole of our being, and then choosing to see the stars above, the lights of wisdom and possibility within our reach. I often remind myself, I am more than the obstacles I face. I am also the potential I hold. When you catch yourself lost in frustration, replaying mistakes, or dwelling on what is missing, pause and bring your attention to this question. Am I looking down at the mud or up at the stars? In the moment you ask this, you reclaim your power to decide. Through mindful breathing, you can shift your focus from negativity to the glimmers of insight waiting to be recognized. The Buddha encouraged us repeatedly to practice this mindful awareness, as it is only through awareness that you can break the cycle of suffering. By asking, "What am I looking at right now?" you become an active participant in shaping your emotional reality, no longer a passive victim of your circumstances. Of course, this reorientation does not instantly solve every problem in your life. It does not magically erase debt, mend relationships, or cure illness, but it significantly affects the way you handle such challenges. When you adopt an uplifting perspective, you engage each obstacle with a calmer, more solution-focused approach. The negativity that once overwhelmed you becomes an experience you can learn from, an event that spurs growth, creativity, and self-compassion rather than fueling bitterness. In my own life, I have learned that no matter how dire a situation seems at first glance, identifying even a single point of light or possibility can spark a chain reaction of positive change. The Buddha often spoke of compassion and understanding as the twin wings that elevate us beyond suffering. Compassion allows us to recognize that everyone around us faces similar struggles, reminding us to connect deeply with others rather than isolating ourselves in our pain. Understanding guides us to refrain from harsh judgment of ourselves or others, and to see that we are far more than our past mistakes or current circumstances. When you blend this compassion and understanding with the active choice of focusing on the stars. A shift occurs in your being that brings genuine relief and hope. So, how do you put this into practice? Begin each day with a simple vow to look up, to shift your perspective intentionally. If you catch yourself fixating on negative thoughts, pause and breathe deeply. Ask, where else might I direct my gaze? Consciously choose to notice small blessings: a supportive friend, a skill you have honed, the beauty of nature, or even the resilience you have shown up to this point. As you gather these moments of gratitude, your mind becomes more attuned to the positive currents already flowing within your life. Lastly, remember the story of the two prisoners. Both faced the same conditions, yet their minds led them down drastically different paths. One sank deeper into despair. The other experienced hope and awe. By looking up, you align yourself with that second prisoner, whose perspective opens the door to inner freedom even amid restrictions. The Buddha taught that the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Embrace this truth wholeheartedly. Realize that no outer setback can confine your spirit if you choose to see opportunity in adversity, to see stars where others see only darkness. May you carry this insight forward, noticing how a mere shift in perspective can transform your outlook and your life's trajectory. You are never bound to negativity unless you agree to be. There is always a chance for renewal, for an awakening that returns your gaze to the infinite sky. So let each new day, each new breath, be a reminder that you hold immense power to determine whether you see only the mud at your feet or the limitless stars shining brilliantly overhead. By choosing the stars, you choose hope, growth, and peace no matter where you stand. The Buddha's compassionate message is clear. While life's circumstances can be challenging, even harsh, our inner response holds the key to either cultivating joy or perpetuating suffering. When we choose to shift our perspective, to look up and see possibility, we open ourselves to profound transformation. Today, I will share how this principle applies in real-life situations, illuminating a path toward deeper happiness and emotional freedom. Consider first the parable we have journeyed through together: two prisoners, confined behind the same bars, gazing into the same scene. One becomes fixated on the muddy ground, seeing only gloom and despair. The other, however, lifts his eyes and beholds the majestic night sky, a vision of infinity and endless wonder. Though both men live under the same restrictions, one is tormented by negativity, while the other experiences awe, finding hope despite his confinement. The contrast between these two prisoners reveals that how we perceive our reality holds more power over our emotional state than any external condition. This teaching, deeply embedded in the Buddha's wisdom, reminds us that true liberation begins in the mind, not in the external environment. We see a similar principle in a real-life story I once heard of a woman named Anna who faced tremendous financial hardship. Laid off from her job, struggling to support her children, she often felt tempted to believe the world was entirely against her. Like the first prisoner, her initial view fixated on the bills piling up, the phone calls from creditors. Yet, upon encountering the Buddhist teachings, Anna made a conscious decision to focus on what she could control. She approached each day mindfully, reminding herself that she was not merely her financial struggles. By shifting her gaze upward, Anna found the energy to volunteer at a local community center, develop new skills, and reconnect with supportive friends. Overnight, her situation did not magically resolve, but her spirit grew lighter and more determined. What could have been an unending mire of discouragement transformed into a journey of growth and renewed optimism. Another modern-day example concerns a friend of mine who underwent a painful divorce. Initially, he felt as though his world were crumbling. The betrayal, the sudden loneliness, and the weight of uncertainty overwhelmed him. In his own words, it was as if a dark cloud permanently hung overhead. Then he came across the story of the two prisoners. Something about that simple image struck him deeply. He realized that while the betrayal was real and the grief was undeniable, he was trapping himself even further by dwelling on anger and regret. Through meditation and a conscious practice of forgiveness, he chose to look for the stars, focusing on small daily blessings: his children's laughter, the warmth of kind words from a friend, the simple pleasure of a sunrise walk. Over time, his heartbreak eased, replaced by a new sense of purpose. He told me it was like learning to breathe again, discovering that hope indeed lives beyond pain. These stories exemplify how perspective functions in various real-life hardships, reflecting the Buddha's poignant reminder that your mindset, more than your predicament, dictates your emotional experience. You may wonder, how can I adopt this star-filled perspective in my own life? Start by developing mindfulness. The Buddha emphasized that mindfulness is not about denying your problems, but about allowing yourself to see them clearly without being submerged in fear or bitterness. When faced with a difficulty, pause, breathe in slowly, and ask yourself, am I focusing on the mud or am I searching for the stars? This question alone can shift your consciousness, transforming a moment of panic into an opportunity for insight. Next, practice gratitude daily. Even in the bleakest times, if you search within your circumstances, you will discover reasons for gratitude no matter how small. The second prisoner did not have his freedom in a physical sense, yet he chose to appreciate the nighttime sky, the mere sight of which brought him solace and wonder. In the same manner, your heartfelt acknowledgement of life's blessings, however modest, sow seeds of joy that grow within your mind and overshadow the darkness of discouragement. Furthermore, cultivate compassion for yourself and for others. Anger or self-judgment typically arises when we compare reality to our expectations or cling stubbornly to perceived injustices. The Buddha taught that compassion lightens the burden of negativity. By choosing to accept what you cannot change and to act with kindness wherever possible, you effectively shift your center of gravity from complaint to constructive thought. This does not mean becoming passive. It means engaging your mind with solutions rather than fixating on blame. Compassion also extends to understanding that everyone around you, like the two prisoners, faces their own internal battles. When you grasp that universal struggle, a shared humanity emerges, making your heart softer and your perspective broader. Finally, the key lies in consistent practice. Every day, affirm to yourself that you will lift your gaze away from the mud of life's struggles and look instead to the stars, the potential for growth and wisdom in each situation. This may involve journaling, meditation, or simply pausing midday to reflect on your attitude. Recall the real-world examples of those who have chosen hope over despair, engagement over defeat. If they can do it, you can as well. The lesson in all of this, my friends, is that your circumstances do not dictate your happiness. What matters is where you direct your focus and how you choose to interpret life's events. In letting go of endless complaints or self-pity, you create space in your heart for gratitude, compassion, and spiritual maturity. Like the second prisoner, you, too, can see the stars. In that powerful perspective, you find true liberation, the door to an unshakable sense of peace that remains bright, even in your darkest hour. Embrace this path wholeheartedly, and watch as your burdens lighten, your hopes multiply, and your life transforms into a tapestry of purpose and radiant possibility. My dear friends, as we now conclude this journey of understanding, let us pause and reflect on the powerful lesson revealed by the story of two prisoners who share the same view yet perceive completely different realities. One sees mud and despair. The other sees the infinite wonder of the stars. In essence, the Buddha reminds us that our true freedom does not depend on external conditions, but on our internal perspective. I have personally found that, when faced with challenges, pausing to recognize the beauty that still exists despite the difficulties can transform an otherwise dark moment into an opportunity for growth and insight. The Buddhist teaching gently assures us that no matter how deep the mud may seem, our power to look up and see possibility remains intact. Each challenge we face is not just an obstacle but also a potential turning point, allowing us to strengthen our minds, open our hearts, and deepen our compassion toward ourselves and others. Suffering may arise uninvited, yet we hold the power to respond, rather than merely react to life's events. This shift from suffering to conscious engagement unfolds when we embrace mindful awareness and an attitude of gratitude. I encourage you to embrace this perspective wholeheartedly. Call to action. Right after this message, please take a moment to practice a brief mindfulness exercise. Close your eyes and envision any current difficulty or problem as the mud. Then, slowly lift your gaze in your mind's eye, picturing the stars of hope and potential shining above. Breathe in deeply, allowing the fresh energy of possibility to fill your spirit. And on your exhale, let go of fear or frustration. Commit to doing this simple visualization at least once each day for the next week, and observe the softening of your burdens. Remember that each morning offers a fresh start. Each breath invites a new way of seeing your challenges. You can be free in spirit even if your circumstances are not perfect. Let the Buddha's timeless message inspire you to practice this awareness daily, fostering compassion, resilience, and a sense of awe. By shifting your perspective from mud to stars, you empower yourself to transcend outer limitations and discover the radiant joy within.